The Great Schism. Why Christianity split. Divisions in Christianity have existed, still exist, and most likely will continue to exist. There are dozens, even hundreds of them, and it is impossible to keep track of all. However, there is one split that can confidently be called the father of all schisms. It is known as the Great Schism, from which the largest Christian traditions of today, Catholicism and Orthodoxy, emerged from what was once a single church. How did this happen? There are many questions, so let us get straight to the point. Like any institution, the church consists of people, and human nature is far from perfect. The Great Schism was fueled by hundreds of small and large disagreements. There were struggles for personal power, subtle theological disputes, and even disagreements over the recipe for bread used in worship. In this video, we will examine all three lines, authority, theology, and ritual, and see how they led to the Great Schism of 1054, which continues to influence the lives of hundreds of millions of people today. The structure of early Christianity. The main centers of the Christian world were Rome, Constantinople, Alexandria, Antioch, and Jerusalem. They were known as the Pentarchy, meaning the 5 senior sees. All were important, but over time the balance of power shifted. Rome and Constantinople began to gain prominence. Rome, as the see of the Apostle Peter, to whom Christ entrusted the keys of the kingdom of heaven. Constantinople, as the capital of the Eastern Roman Empire, the New Rome. Even so, all major church decisions were always made collectively through councils. The guiding principle was consensus, not the dictatorship of one side. It resembled a family council, where common matters are discussed together to avoid conflict. Gradually, life in the West and the East began to differ more and more. In the West, Latin language, Roman law, and the relative independence of bishops developed alongside weak imperial authority. Bishops often resolved local matters on their own. In the East, Greek language dominated, along with the Byzantine concept of symphonia, harmony between the emperor and the patriarch. Although doctrine was defined at ecumenical councils, different legal customs and theological styles accumulated. West and East drifted further apart. The first major conflict. In the 9th century, the first serious conflict, the Photian Schism, erupted. The Patriarch of Constantinople was replaced by an imperial appointee. Rome refused to recognize this appointment and intervened. The dispute expanded beyond legality to include questions such as, who would oversee Bulgaria? Who would baptize the Slavs? Whose rights would be considered normative? The scandal was formally resolved, but resentment remained. Politics added fuel to the fire. In the year 800, the Pope crowned Charlemagne as Emperor of the Holy Roman Empire, covering much of modern Germany, France, and northern Italy, without consulting Constantinople. The message was clear: we now have our own empire and our own order. By the 10th century, East and West still called themselves one church, but they thought and prayed in different languages. The Latin West spoke the language of law and discipline. The Greek East spoke the language of theology and symbols. What began as differences in practice became differences in how the church itself was understood. Authority. Who decides? This marked the first line of the future schism. In the West, the church increasingly developed around a single center. The Bishop of Rome, the Pope, was seen not merely as first among equals, but as the successor of Peter, to whom Christ said, "You are Peter, and on this rock I will build my church." Since Peter received the keys, his successor was believed to hold universal authority. Thus emerged the idea of universal jurisdiction, the right to intervene in any dispute and define norms for the entire church. What began as moral authority gradually resembled political power. By the 10th century, the Pope increasingly resembled an emperor of all Christians. For fragmented Europe, this centralization was convenient. One pope was better than countless disputing bishops. Rome became the final arbiter. In the East, Rome's special position was acknowledged, but as honor, not authority. The Pope was not an emperor, but a guardian of unity. The decisive authority belonged to the Ecumenical Council, where bishops were equal participants. Truth, in Eastern logic, emerges not from one person's decision, but from collective agreement. Rome was the elder in the family, but the family stood on mutual respect, not domination. Thus, the difference was not whether Rome had a special role. It did, but what that role meant. In the West, primacy meant the right to decide. In the East, the duty to preserve consensus. Theology, the Filioque. The second line of division concerned theology, specifically the Nicene Creed, adopted in 325 at the First Council of Nicaea and later affirmed as the foundation of Christianity. The conflict centered on the addition of a single word, Filioque, and the Son. In the West, it became common to say that the Holy Spirit proceeds from the Father and the Son. This was intended to emphasize the equality of Father and Son and combat earlier heresies. The West viewed this as a clarification, not a new doctrine. The East objected on two grounds. Procedure. The Creed was approved by an ecumenical council and could not be altered unilaterally. Content. In Eastern theology, the Father alone is the source of divinity. The Spirit proceeds from the Father. His relationship to the Son is expressed differently. Though the meanings were close, the difference symbolized deeper theological divergence, and, crucially, the West's willingness to decide common matters independently. Ritual, bread, clergy, and practice. Daily religious life also differed. The West used unleavened bread in the Eucharist. The East used leavened bread. For the West, this emphasized sacrifice. For the East, resurrection and fullness of life. Celibacy became standard for Western clergy, while married priests remained normal in the East. Fasting rules, chants, gestures, iconography, and clerical appearance also varied. These differences did not by themselves cause a schism, but they made divisions visible and tangible. Ritual is the language of faith. It makes belief physical. The breaking point, 1054. By the mid-11th century, tensions peaked. Pope Leo IX sent envoys to Constantinople to resolve disputes. During negotiations, the Pope died, leaving the envoys without authority. Nevertheless, they proceeded. In the summer of 1054, they entered Hagia Sophia, placed a bull of excommunication on the altar against Patriarch Michael Cerularius, and left. In response, the Byzantine Synod excommunicated the envoys. Formally, these actions targeted individuals, not entire churches, but symbolically, communion between Rome and Constantinople ended. Aftermath and point of no return. Contacts continued for a time, but the institutional divide deepened. The West adopted the name Catholic, Universal, while the East embraced Orthodox, right belief. The Crusades intensified the divide. The breaking point came in 1204, when the Fourth Crusade sacked Constantinople. Holy sites were desecrated, and a Western Patriarch was installed. After this, reconciliation became nearly impossible. 1054 marked the official schism. 1204 marked the point of no return. Attempts at reunion followed in 1274 and 1439, but they were rejected by clergy and people alike. After the fall of Constantinople in 1453, the paths seemed fully separated. Modern dialogue. In the 20th century, dialogue resumed. In 1965, Pope Paul VI and Patriarch Athenagoras lifted the mutual anathemas, 911 years later. It was symbolic, not full unity, but it reopened conversation. Today, Catholic and Orthodox churches remain separate, yet engage in dialogue and pray for peace. Conclusion. Did the schism happen because the East rejected papal authority? Not exactly. Because of one word in the creed? No, but symbolized deeper differences. Because of bread? Hardly. The Great Schism was the result of centuries of divergence in authority, theology, and lived faith.